Hey, and welcome back to Game Talk. I'm your host, Sam, and me, today I'm joined by Connor.
Hey, guys.
And Mike.
Hello.
And we're faced with some insane rumors / speculation for the future of Xbox this week. On Sunday evening, or was it like Sunday afternoon, a lot of reliable insiders started saying the same thing, that all these Xbox games, formerly first-party Xbox games, were going multi-platform. Rumors going around that all Xbox games are going to be multi-platform going forward, effectively rendering Microsoft Xbox third-party, which is just insane to think of.
I guess I have a question. Are they third-party if they're putting out a console still?
Yeah, that's right. I guess if they're games on, I guess you have to think about the definition of third party, because as it stands right now, the current rumor, just to get this out of the way, is that starting with a select few games and eventually all of Microsoft's first party games are going to be on everything. And from a financial perspective, this makes a ton of sense for Microsoft. They've always been a software company.
Yeah.
But this, and I think rightfully so, paints some concerns about the future of Xbox.
Well, it's another thing for them to do that also looks super pro-consumer. Not having any exclusives, that just means, okay, I don't have to think anymore. I buy a PlayStation, right? That sounds great, but...
That sounds great on paper, but
down the line...
To be clear, I really don't think Microsoft cares, right? They'll yes, buy the PlayStation, we'll sell more games, we'll still make hardware for the foreseeable future. But I think a lot of this furor around this impending announcement, by the way, there's going to be an official announcement from Xbox next week. Phil Spencer tweeted out after the news leaked Sunday and there was a lot of crazy discourse online. He tweeted out on Monday that we have a business update to share with everyone regarding the future of Xbox.
He opened it with, "We hear you."
We hear you, yeah.
That's
his go-to,
the breakup
right?
text.
Yeah. So
we need to talk.
You can't read into things just through text, but people as high up as Phil Spencer, even their tweets are very engineered, right?
Yeah.
He's not just going to tweet whatever he says.
No.
So I think you can read into the tenor projected by that tweet, and it did seem to maybe soft confirm some of these things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. I am pro overall. I am anti-exclusive in every way. As a consumer, I don't want any game to be exclusive to a platform. I think it sucks. That said, I also don't want PlayStation to be the only console that exists.
Yeah. No, there's so many.
Terrible.
If this comes to pass, there's so many angles on this, and that's another angle. I, as a primary PlayStation player, do not want PlayStation to be the only console. And of course, in these conversations, Nintendo is always left out of the conversation.
Well,
but for good reason,
they don't make
I think.
A console, they make a handheld.
They're just not... They make a console handheld hybrid, but there is a very distinct high-end console market that is PlayStation and Xbox presently.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
that might change in the future. But there's a very specific slice of this market that belongs to PlayStation and Xbox, if they go fully third party, that cedes all of that over to PlayStation. And we've seen what can happen. Granted, this was a decade plus ago at this point, but we've seen what can happen with PlayStation when they have too much power.
Yeah, the $600 PlayStation 3, yeah.
Yeah.
In 2007 or whatever, 2006, back when...
Right.
Yeah, that's probably $1,000 today,
Hold on, let me check.
No, the other thing is Nintendo's in this conversation about as much as PC is. They're just at the other end.
Exactly.
Nintendo sits at the low end. PC sits at the high end, or sort of. PC sits at every end. PC also sits at the low end.
PC sits at every end.
Yeah.
I mean, PC has more overlap with PlayStation, Xbox than Nintendo does.
Yes.
But
I just don't think it's the same market.
Exactly. That being said, PlayStation, Xbox is a distinct market.
Yeah, the person who goes out to buy a console does not have PC in mind. Much like the person that goes out to buy a PC doesn't have a console in mind. And
we're an enthusiast gaming podcast, so it's hard to see the broader picture a lot of times. But there's a huge, significant chunk of the market that is just one console. This is where I live. This is where I play.
Yeah.
So the PS3, if it released with the same price point that it did for the base model, which was $500 in 2006, that is almost $759 right now.
Yeah,
that's the equivalent.
Wait, the base model was 500. I thought it was 600.
I thought it was 600 too.
The base model was for the hold on. That was for the 20 gigabyte. 600 was for the 60
right,
gigabyte.
there was a 20 gigabyte. That's crazy.
Yeah, so if you wanted the 60, that was like 600, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That one's $911.
Nice.
I wouldn't pay that for a console in the modern day. Sorry.
No, you get a PC.
Like, no way. No way.
Actually, you can't really get it. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, like, that price point was a relic of the past, hopefully. But, in this hypothetical future where Sony is the only console for this market, then why wouldn't they drive up the price?
Suddenly,
they could get away with it.
Suddenly, they are seeing themselves as competing with PC at that point.
Yeah.
And I think if without Xbox, I think the Sony games coming to PC probably stops as well.
Yeah, so, and just to be clear, this without Xbox thing, insane hypothetical. This, I firmly believe, and we'll know next week for sure, but this has just been taken way out of proportion by people online. I think what we'll see is that Xbox will announce a slate of exclusive games that they're porting over to PlayStation, that they're bringing over to Nintendo Switch 2 or whatever. And then that's all they'll say next week.
See, I would agree, but
I think
Indiana Jones,
but I think that's the opening salvo for eventually all their first party will be everywhere.
Bringing Indiana Jones and Starfield, like bringing Hi-Fi Rush and I think Hi-Fi Rush, Sea of Thieves, those make sense to port, especially since
those make sense.
Sea of Thieves
but
is a live service.
Starfield is what kicked off this whole conversation.
Yeah, and Indy's going to be huge too.
That's going to be huge. Yeah,
it's very strange for them to just, I mean, that's just conceding, basically. That's saying, like, we're not going to win this gen. Like, we're not going to move enough Xboxes.
I really think Starfield is the straw that broke the camel's back. Like,
you think it didn't make enough money?
I think that it didn't light the world on fire the way they were expecting it to.
Yeah.
Because that was their big game. That was their exclusive. That was, like, the system seller.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be those things, but it turns out it really wasn't. And that's not to say Starfield wasn't a success. Like, it has, I think, over 10 million players. It's a huge success by any metric. But it was not the end-all, be-all, I think, that Microsoft was expecting.
No, I doubt it sold that many Xboxes.
Yeah.
It was not the system seller. That's the key.
Yeah.
And I know people always want to point to the fact that, Microsoft doesn't care about console sales. Well, I think they do in the sense that, like, they're pivoting to this new strategy that totally avoids console sales.
Yeah, I would say that this is the final nail in the coffin on them saying, no, we actually really don't care about console sales, because the only reason, I would say, I'm afraid I'm about to pivot in a way that I don't know if we're ready to, but I was talking to a buddy who's really into the Xbox ecosystem, and his fear is, like, the way it is now, whenever the next Xbox came out, he was going to be able to carry his Elden Ring save to it. And all of his saves for, like, his 360 games and his Xbox One games, those all carried completely cleanly to the Series X, and they were going to carry cleanly to the next one, probably. And all of his backwards compatibility and everything. And, now he's staring down the barrel of having to buy a PlayStation, and he doesn't like the controller as much, which I kind of agree. I did not like the DualShock 4. I've never held a DualSense, but you can just not like the hand feel of something, and you can't really do that much about it on a console. And I would be upset staring down the barrel of that.
No, I think his concerns are totally valid, and that's what a lot of people are worried about. Like, what happens? Like, we all know that they're not going to announce the death of Xbox next week. That's absurd.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
But this is absolutely setting the precedent for that to happen later down the line.
Yeah.
And with the PS4, Xbox One generation, these machines really became your ecosystem. Like, if you're in PlayStation for the PlayStation 4 gen, that's probably where you're going to be until the day comes you stop playing video games. Just because that's where your friends were. That's where all your games are. That's where your saves are.
Yeah.
Same with Xbox, right? So for the long term, for the longevity of your primary console to be even threatened a little bit, it's really kind of scary because you're looking at basically a waste of all the time you've invested, all the money you've invested, all the memories, right? Like that you've made, this nostalgia associated with it. It's a big deal to people who are locked into one ecosystem.
Yeah.
And like Xbox Series, what are they at? Around like 25, 30 million people? That's not a small amount of people.
No, not at all.
So, but to assuage your friend's concerns a little bit, I highly, highly doubt, even if Xbox goes away, like they're going to exist in software capacity. His account will still be there.
Yeah,
I'm sure his saves will still be in the cloud.
Cloud gaming is not going away for them for a while, I don't think. And all the back compat and stuff would work there still. I think the problem, he lives in West Virginia. Like, cloud gaming's just kind of a non-factor there.
Yeah.
And yeah, they'd be leaving people behind on that.
I mean, in a ways, this is even more so doubling down on the cloud future, especially at Xbox. And maybe the cloud future is the future, but it certainly is not the present. So,
yeah. Well, what if the rumor is
Microsoft really has to prove their cloud infrastructure is ready for that sort of thing, even for people like your friend who don't live in like New York City.
Yeah.
To be able to have a seamless transition over from like hardware-based gaming to solely software cloud-based gaming.
Yeah.
But man, it's a crazy thing to think about, and I'm excited to see, or maybe excited is the wrong word, but eager to see what Phil Spencer has to say next week, because it really does seem to contradict in many ways the strategy that they were positioning for themselves up to this point. Like with the whole Activision Blizzard deal, a huge point of contention in that whole fiasco for years was the exclusivity of Activision Blizzard games like Call of Duty and Blizzard titles like Diablo.
We're not doing exclusives at all now.
And that was a huge point of contention that got lots of scrutiny from governments even.
Yeah.
My question, it really seems like to me that this was a recent pivot.
Is there
in light of that kind of information, right? Like, because it really did seem like initially all these acquisitions were being done in service of a strong first-party exclusive catalog. But and again, this is all speculation, but it seems like someone super high up at Microsoft in charge of money finally scrutinized what was happening at Xbox and asked the question, why don't we just put it on everywhere to get more money? And
that's
answer,
one possibility.
Yeah.
Is there any chance that he's going to go on stage next week and announce that Game Pass is coming to PlayStation?
I think there's a slim chance, yeah.
Because that would explain, that would mean there's no porting involved. It would just be, there could be porting. I guess they could port the games and maybe make them Game Pass exclusive on PlayStation. I could see that model.
I think it's a non-zero chance, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think they're going to announce games being ported over.
Maybe.
Like, I don't think it's going to be Game Pass because, quite frankly, I don't think Sony wants Game Pass on their system.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's so weird because Hi-Fi Rush going to PlayStation, like, that's just not a system seller, It was never a system seller. It's just a pretty good game that, like,
Indiana Jones could be a system seller, though.
Yeah, exactly. And, Starfield,
like,
whether
they basically have
or not.
Uncharted, but, like, from the original source.
Yeah.
Like, this is potentially their first compelling first-party game in years, I would say.
Halo
like, just
Infinite
by judging
good.
by the potential of it, right?
Halo Infinite was poised to be everything, dude, and they just kind of messed it up with a
dude,
really
that's what
bad
I'm saying.
launch.
Like,
yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Halo Infinite was poised to be Xbox's savior.
Yeah.
Then
and now
Starfield
Indie
was
is.
poised to be Xbox's savior. Well, now it's sort of falling on indie, but I think at a certain point, the seesaw flipped in the other direction, where they were just like, all right, enough waiting. Because I really do think there's enough inertia with Xbox's first-party catalog that I firmly do believe if given enough time, eventually they'll be a monster. Like, competitive, if not more competitive than PlayStation. But how long is enough time, right? Like, it could be 10 years from now, 15 years from now. And I think the bean counters at Xbox were sick of waiting. And they were like, we're going to maximize profits now. We're not going to go with this long-term plan of yours. We're just going to put everything everywhere and make money on software like we do with all our other products. That's my read on this.
So do we want to have some fun in the space? Say like a hypothetical future where Xbox stops making hardware.
Yeah, and again, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. I'm pretty sure there's already concrete plans for next-gen Xboxes, like launching around 2026, 2027. Like you see...
That's still plenty of time for them to drop it.
Rumors of... plans change all the time, but like, I think as of now, another Xbox is in the works, at least. And if another Xbox is in the works, that's another solid 7 to 8 years of guaranteed hardware being there. So that all that to say is, at least for the foreseeable future, the hardware is not going anywhere.
Let me pitch you something. Microsoft no longer makes the Xbox hardware. They release a specification, a minimum spec, much like they did for the Windows mixed reality headsets that they put out, that different OEM manufacturers can meet to release an Xbox PC or an Xbox laptop. And then Xbox becomes a software that you install on that. And you know, maybe much like what they did with Steam machines a million years ago. And
I think you're not too far off. Actually, when you started talking, I thought you were referencing one of the leaks.
No,
you're kind of close.
Xbox has history, or not Xbox, Microsoft has a history of putting out a spec and saying, like, put our software on this. You know, that's what they did with the mixed reality headsets. It's what
just really quickly, I just want to highlight, around January 15th, in some Discord server, there was a leak, right? January 15th. So this is weeks ago at this point. Today is February 2nd, or 6th, for everyone keeping track. But this Discord leak said that Xbox is porting over Starfield, Indiana Jones, then eventually going to go third party. They said that Sony is partnering with Kojima to make another game. They said that Kojima's making a movie. So, like, they called all of these things before they happen. So it's clearly someone with some inside knowledge.
Yeah.
And one of the things they said was that Microsoft is going to partner with third-party hardware manufacturers to make next-gen Xbox consoles. So they're not going to, if this rumor is true, they're not going to be making Xboxes themselves. Rather, they're going to be third-party companies making Xboxes on behalf of Microsoft.
So those Xboxes would almost certainly just be Windows computers with Xbox software running on top of them. That would just make
I can't imagine someone making a bespoke... it's just too much work.
Yeah, there's no money in it, I don't think. Like, because so the disadvantage is that once you're working with third parties like they are, they will not be able to compete with PlayStation on price because they cannot sell a loss leader console. They can't sell it at cost. They have to make money on the console now.
Yeah.
Because someone else is making it, you know? Like, say Lenovo or HP are making one of these. They're not getting any money on game sales unless Xbox has a wild deal made with them. So now they're having to sell, you know, they're going to have to just tack $100 on or $200 on so that they can make a profit on every one of these sold. Suddenly it's not, I don't know, it's not as, Valve tried to do this. Like when I was in high school, I think it was like, maybe even middle school, like 2010, 2012, something like that. They tried to do something called a Steam machine. And
I remember.
It was a minimum spec that came, and I think they originally wanted them to come with Linux, but that was never going to happen back then. So they shipped with Windows, and it was just like a console-esque PC. It came with an Xbox controller. It released around the same time as Steam Big Picture, and I think the Steam controller came out around this time. I'm having trouble remembering. But the idea was it was a PC you would plug into your TV, and you would play, you know, it was a very console-like experience. And as you may have noticed, Valve learned from this, and they made the Steam Deck themselves and sell it very close to at cost so that they can just make the money off the game sales, because this business model doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work, for reference, it doesn't really work for Microsoft either. It works for them selling laptops, but it did not work for Windows Mixed Reality. That is being discontinued in 2026. There are no more headsets coming, and the software is not going to function anymore in 2 years. So it's a weird thing. I would not be surprised if they try it because they've got such a history, but it's not a good idea.
Speaking of business models not working, I think we have to talk about Game Pass, right? Like this shift is very indicative of the things that Jim Ryan actually said in the court hearings when they were having this spat over the Activision Blizzard deal. He said that Game Pass is not a sustainable business model. The major publishers he all talks to dislike it, and that he can't see it surviving long term. And I think he was probably dead on the money with that.
Yeah.
With this shift. And I do think Microsoft is still going to continue Game Pass. I don't think Game Pass is going anywhere because that would be disastrous if they canceled Game Pass.
I would also be very sad to see it go.
But I do think that putting all their games everywhere will help fund Game Pass.
Yeah.
Because Game Pass is only possible right now because Microsoft is the richest company in the world. They're worth over $3 trillion. So they can hemorrhage money and fund Game Pass, pay their, studios to make these games, to put them out for quote unquote free on Game Pass.
And I do still believe in that long-term plan. I think Game Pass,
it's a time game. It's a time game. It's just like, can they hold out long enough for them to get enough subs to make Game Pass profitable?
Yeah.
And I think, once again, someone at Microsoft was like, all right, we've waited long enough. We need to pivot strategies now.
And it really
because I do not believe. Well, but that's the thing. Like,
I know
if some suit who's never played a video, I guarantee you, some suit who's never played a video game is making these decisions. Because I do not think Phil Spencer is behind this.
Oh no,
I think
I
think he hates this, but he has to do his job.
I mean, it's really, United States company, think past current fiscal quarter, challenge level impossible.
Exactly, yeah. This is a very short-term solution for potential long-term irreparable damage to Xbox as a brand. And I know, like, brand loyalty is something that seems silly to someone who's not really enraptured into an ecosystem. But I can understand it, right? Like, there are people who grew up with Xbox, who have been in the Xbox ecosystem since the very beginning. Like, obviously, they don't want to see that going away.
It is funny to me how you can trace, not all, but a lot of, like most, I would argue, of Xbox's woes that they're having right now to the moment Don Matrick went on stage to announce the Xbox One. Like,
absolutely.
That single day 10 years ago was so devastating to this brand that they have not recovered in a decade.
The shockwaves from that day are still being felt today.
It's
the
so
shockwaves
funny.
from that day and then the subsequent video of Sony just murdering them. Do you guys know what video I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The shared games video.
Game.
Like, that 1-2 punch, Microsoft is still reeling from that today. Because without that event, there would be no Game Pass. And without Game Pass, there would be no current shift that we're seeing right now.
I think what they were trying to do is they were kind of trying to introduce the you will not own your games as a service thing.
That Ubisoft is doing now.
A decade too early, because now Ubisoft announces that you will never own games again. And
well, was it a decade too early? No one wants that now.
Nobody wants that now. But
I don't think anyone will want that ever.
No one notices it happening when it's a digital purchase. But they tried to put DRM on a disc in 2012.
They did.
And or 2014, I think. And that was just foolish. Like, that was never going to work. And anybody who was paying attention, even then, knew that digital was the future, and that if they would have just waited it out, if they waited.
The way I see it is, sure, like, Steam is a massive platform on PC, right?
Yeah,
and everything.
The biggest, yeah.
But I still do think Valve, somewhere in their terms, has a term that if they ever go under or crash or die out, like a company inevitably will, you will own all your games. They will get you keys.
Yeah, I think you
get a
DRM free copy. I think somewhere in the terms. I looked at this a decade ago when I started buying games there, and I don't remember it now.
That's actually crazy if true, because I was always under the impression, like, I don't know about Valve, but like, say PlayStation got hit by a meteor tomorrow, I'd be like, all right, it sucks, but all my digital games are gone. Like, if PlayStation goes under, I fully expect to just lose my games. So that's great to know that like a company like Valve potentially has a clause in their legal speak to account for such a situation, even though it's probably never going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is from Valve support in 11 years ago. I asked Steam support what would happen to my games if Valve goes out of business. This is probably what I saw 11 years ago. Hi, thank you for contacting Steam support. In the unlikely event of the discontinuation of the Steam network, measures are in place to ensure that all users will continue to have access to their Steam games. If you have any further questions, please let us know. We'll be happy to assist you.
That's the biggest assurance that I can get that a company's like, yeah, we'll work it out.
If there's any company I'm going to trust with that, it's Valve. I genuinely, I don't think I would anyone else, but they've just never wronged me.
Yeah. Valve's never, in their history of using Steam, I've never been like, oh man, I hate Valve. In fact, it's been the opposite. Every time I like touch Steam, I'm like, this is just a good platform.
Every time I have to touch another store, like including like console stuff, I'm like, oh man,
why can't it be like
Steam really did it right?
Yeah, they I mean, when you've been a digital content front for almost a decade, over a decade.
Yeah, since Half-Life 2 came out.
Like, you've done it right.
No, it's not.
2003. Steam's been around since for 20 years.
Yeah,
21 years. Steam's old enough to drink. Like, it's a platform that I don't think is going anywhere. And as much as people groan and moan about how they have a monopoly, they sure are enforcing it.
Yeah.
Like, they don't care.
Steam doesn't have exclusives, so
yeah, they don't have exclusives. Like, if
actually,
Steam started getting
Half-Life Alyx is a Steam exclusive. I guess
that's
all
because
Valve
it's a Valve title. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a Valve title. Of course, they're going to be exclusives.
If only Valve made more games.
Yeah, Valve doesn't make. Valve's not in the business of making games anymore. They're in the business of offering a stellar service.
And making the best hardware in the industry.
Literally, like, I don't know. Maybe it's Valve's management style.
It helps.
Like Valve is pretty much just a workers' co-op without the title.
So speaking of Valve, there are strong rumors that Valve has another Steam machine coming, like a home console. And I am curious if Xbox is pulling out of the console game, and that like
big if though.
If, but like, would that not be insanely fortuitous?
For Valve to basically corner the console market.
So if we're going with that hypothetical, like, there will be a small window where there will be a power vacuum, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And no one's better suited than Valve.
No one in the world.
Other than maybe someone like
Apple. Maybe.
Apple. I was going to say Apple.
And like, the thing
to
is,
fill that vacuum.
Valve has already kind of tore up the handheld market.
Yeah, no, I mean,
it's wild.
Yeah, they've introduced, I mean, the Steam Deck has so many clones out now, and like, Valve are just sitting there happy as could be. And that's another thing I could see is Valve Valve might have insider knowledge on a hypothetical, like, Xbox spec. They would probably know about it.
And Proton being honestly one of the best gaming platforms out there right now, Valve's seated to just throw that in a console and go.
Yeah.
Like, it wouldn't be hard. They don't even need to like get proprietary materials. It would make dev work super easy if it's just PC components in a console box,
I agree with you guys that Valve can do it, but I also believe, and maybe it's just to play devil's advocate a little bit, but I also believe that in the console space, inertia really, really matters.
I agree.
Like, for a new player in the console space to come in, let's say 2027, 28.
Yeah.
Is just almost unthinkable.
They would not,
for them to come in and be competitive with Nintendo and Sony.
I don't think they would be. Not on their first outing. I mean, that would just be ludicrous.
Yeah.
But I could see it moving 15 million units, like maybe even 20, a lifetime. Like,
yeah. And I mean, they've proved themselves with the Steam Deck.
Yeah.
But there is definitely, like, they have to make a console and not just a box that is a PC that looks like a console, right? Like, they have to make an actual console.
I
Like,
don't
because
they're so close. I mean, you've used a Steam Deck, right? Like if you don't
Yeah.
mess with it, it just is that. Like SteamOS 3.0, if you just don't mess with it, it's a console. It it is almost as much
Right.
as a Switch is. And that almost
Yeah,
is doing
so-
some lifting, I'll admit, but
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, but,
and-
but what I'm getting at is that the console audience wants something you turn on, you're playing,
yeah,
that's it.
they would have
no
to
fiddling,
it'd
nothing.
have to be 100%.
So, but
interestingly,
I do
too-
believe Valve could do it. It's just going to be very, very hard to get some of that share.
I think the only thing they
from
would have
Sony
to do to get
Nintendo.
there, to get to the perfect console experience, is improve their verification program and get publishers on board. I think that would
you
be
say
it.
you say only, but like these things, getting publishers on
Well,
board.
okay,
is
I say
a
only
big
because
deal.
it's one thing. It's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I know, like I could see a Valve console coming out, and I think it's probably the likeliest alternative that we're discussing. But
Well, this is 100%,
I do
like-
firmly believe it's going to be even for Valve a huge uphill battle if they do it.
I would bet everything. There is a Valve console coming. That is not an if. Like these are like very, very. These are confirmed rumors. Like there's, if it's not coming, they have been experimenting in the space, and they've talked about a potential console version of the Steam Deck.
Yeah,
and they're working with AMD APUs and everything for that purpose. And they're also there are a lot of patents they filed that are about a wireless headset that would be sold alongside their console, like in a very PSVR-esque sort of thing, so that their console would have a focus on VR. It would be VR ready from the start. So
yeah, it's an exciting time.
It all
like
exists.
the industry is
I
changing
think-
rapidly.
Honestly, like as much as people have said, because every like 5 years, 6 years, PC is dead. PC is dead.
Yeah.
I think honestly, PC is that platform that's never going to go away. It's
No,
just,
PC's never going to
yeah,
go away,
it's
and
too
I don't think
ubiquitous.
PC has been dead for over a decade now. Like I think PC.
I don't think PC's been dead since the first time people said it was dead.
Yeah, no, it was never actually dead, but like people were saying, like there have been ups and downs, but I don't think there's been a down for a long, long time.
I
It's
would
the
push
easiest
back on that.
platform. Yeah,
I
it's the
think
easiest platform for an indie dev to dev for. Like period.
PC's the most dead right now that it's been in the past 10 years, I would argue, just because of the high costs and
Well,
shader
high costs
compilation stutter.
and it does seem like there's issues with major AAA games
Yeah.
every now and then, but I wouldn't
It's
call it
one
dead.
issue.
Like,
Yeah.
dude, look
But
at
as
the
we
user.
know-
Look at the user
yeah.
base.
Yeah.
No, it's huge.
insane.
And
Like-
as we know, like if you are a starting game dev and you just picked up like a Windows laptop, the first games you're going to develop are just going to be on PC.
Yeah.
That's just it.
That's your
You're not
budget,
going to start. Yeah, that's your budget. So it's the domain of indies. I want to say 80 to 90% of the last like million, trillion, or whatever, however many indie games have released in the last decade have been on PC.
And I'd love to see Xbox, to get us back on topic a little. In a world where Xbox isn't making hardware anymore, I would love to see them improve the Xbox software on PC, because it is
It's bad.
not
Doo-doo.
adequate right now. It is.
It's really
there's
bad,
no
right?
controller
Like,
interface.
That's the
It
only
is a
opinion I ever hear
nightmare
about
to
it.
try to move a game from one. Actually, they might have fixed this recently, but at one point it was a nightmare to move a game from one hard drive to another. And modding is terrible, although I don't know if they'll fix that. There are all kinds of problems with the Xbox software on PC. And if the end game of this is that gets improved, I'm happy. At least that's a plus for me. And even if these could be a seamless console experience for the people, that don't want to touch the laptop side, like see it as a Steam Deck where like you boot it up, it's in the Xbox UI and you have to like go into the settings to even get to Windows. I can see that being very clean and like making everybody happy, other than, the things I mentioned about cost being higher.
Yeah, I think that is the route they're going to go. I just don't like their prior experience doesn't inspire confidence, I guess is what I'll say for that.
No.
Because another thing to consider, right? Like I do think the bare minimum they have to do is guaranteed your games and your saves will always be around. Like that has to be guaranteed somehow if they're going to make big moves like this. Because even in the hypothetical future, right? Like if they're like, okay, we're going to go fully third party, but we're still going to put out another Xbox. Like,
I mean, as far as your Xbox
even
games,
then, that diminishes confidence in that console because you're like, okay, you're putting your games everywhere else. Clearly, that is your primary source of income, not the console.
Yeah.
You're clearly saying that, like, okay, console is not it for us. We're just going to put it out to maintain the sort of audience we already have. I would not be confident in the quality of that next console if Xbox isn't putting their all into it.
So the thing about the saves and everything is that the infrastructure is already there, and like I think all Xbox first-party games already implement this. You have cross-save between PC and Xbox on most of these titles, if not all. The ones you don't have it on are the third parties. Anything EA, your Elden Rings, your any of those games, they just don't bother to implement these things because why would they? And so yeah, I don't know how they solve that problem.
But here's the like this is the main reason why I believe the whole Xbox is leaving the console space argument is probably not going to be true is Game Pass. Because right now, something like 80% of Game Pass users are on Xbox and not PC. Like, it's going to be a huge, like, they have to get people off of there or they're just going to lose everyone.
Yeah.
That's why I think at least for the next 7 to 10 years, like, Xbox as hardware will not be going anywhere.
But
now,
are you
I
saying
do think
that
long term they're trying to get off.
You don't think they're going to are you saying you don't think that they're going to get rid of the Xbox entirely, or you don't think they're going to let third-party manufacturers make an Xbox spec?
I think in some way, shape, or form there will be Xbox hardware for the foreseeable future.
Okay, so you're not ruling out the third party.
No, I could see that happening. Simply because like Game Pass is their product now. That is their product.
Like if they were opening the door with the whole Series S, Series X thing, if they were kind of opening the consumer's mind to the idea of there being a bunch of Xboxes.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. Like I don't know. Like how do you feel about that? I guess you don't really care, right? Because you're on PC.
No, I do care because if they do that, I don't think those are actually Xboxes. I think they're Windows computers with a UI
right?
over
like
top of them.
It gives off like Mad Catz vibes almost.
No, I don't think that's fair. Like, look at the handheld space right now. Like we have the ROG Ally, we have the other ones. They're all like
that's fair, and they're pretty good.
They're all very good, yeah. And like they would all be notably way better if Microsoft would put out an Xbox UI that they could put on it, because Windows is just unusable without a mouse and keyboard right now.
Right.
And it's just kind of a pain to boot straight into Steam Big Picture, even though that kind of solves it. Microsoft offering a solution for those people as well as a console spec and everything, it would solve a lot of problems for a lot of people. And I think it would just be neat because it would probably be something I could just install on my PC and I would have access to all of it. And then crossplay is not a problem. I'm not worried about crossplay on Xbox games anymore because obviously it's crossplay. They're just Windows PCs.
Right.
Yeah.
So I actually think it would be a great thing for PC gamers because it would essentially unify that whole market.
I have something a little off topic, but I'm looking at like Steam hardware survey because sometimes I look at that. There's like one dude in Antarctica who's playing Steam games because Antarctica's downloaded 179 gigabytes in the last week.
That's awesome.
Someone in Antarctica is playing Steam right now.
That's I mean, funny. Like, you're a researcher out there. You got to entertain yourself somehow. You can't go outside.
Someone's playing like Counter-Strike
down
down there. Yeah. Someone's down there shirking their duties and playing Counter-Strike. And I think that's wild that all that information is publicly available on Steam.
Dude, that ping has to be so bad.
I was going to say, like, how do they download 170 gigs in Antarctica?
Starlink. I bet you get Starlink in it.
Yeah, probably something.
Do you?
There's probably some satellite internet solution.
Greenland has 20 terabytes downloaded in the last 7 days. So there's gamers in Greenland, apparently.
That's not that surprising.
Greenland is a place where people live, unlike
There's only
Antarctica.
Like 19 people in Antarctica.
Yeah, it's like 5 people in Greenland. What do you mean? But I think Steam hardware survey is really neat.
It is. It's almost useless because of the way that they have run it recently. From what I've read, like those numbers are just not in development circles, they're not respected numbers right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's very nice as a layman to see like what the average spec on a computer across the world is.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I wish more storefronts would do.
I think it's extremely valuable for tracking VR stuff too.
Oh yeah, like you can tell what the most popular VR headset is at any given moment.
Yeah.
And strictly because they track it.
So, just from a personal point of view, back to Xbox.
Yeah.
It will be so strange to see Halo running on PlayStation.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
just from a historical, if you've been around for a while, that just seems like an impossibility.
It'd be
okay.
It's almost to the extent of like seeing Mario on PlayStation or something. Like,
Do you
it's
know
just
how weird it was to be playing through Halo Reach when the Master Chief Collection came through with a PlayStation controller?
Yeah.
Just
Very
let alone
strange.
on PC.
Yeah.
right. Yeah, like it's just one of those things that doesn't seem right, for lack of a better term.
It felt alien.
But Halo is one of those franchises which they're considering, according to the rumor. I mean, if everything's going, then everything's going. But
Yeah.
Now,
Halo will be.
granted, Halo isn't exactly
One of
a massively respected series at this day and age.
Yeah, Halo's star doesn't really shine as bright anymore,
it's in
but
like
like
a
it
dark
still
age.
is really synonymous
It is with the Xbox
with
brand.
Xbox.
Yeah.
Also, like, it makes me so mad because they just waited a year for Halo Infinite. Because
Yeah.
Halo Infinite right now is, like, just incredible. Like, well, if you pretend the campaign doesn't exist, it's really incredible. The multiplayer.
Yeah, the
in that
multiplayer,
game,
the gameplay is
it just
sublime.
gets better and better. They just keep adding more good stuff. And granted, a lot of that good stuff, like Firefight, probably should have been there at launch, but it just gets better and better. I don't love that their idea of a live service is to just give you is much like Nintendo's with Animal Crossing, to just give you the game you should have had at launch piecemeal.
And plus, I mean, that's just the AAA model right now, right? Like,
yeah.
Especially with games like Starfield. Like, did you see Starfield got a huge lighting update that basically makes it look entirely different and way better?
No, I didn't see
Like,
that.
it doesn't look flat anymore. It looks pretty darn good.
That's crazy.
And it's just like, these games are
might
coming
check
out
that
when
out.
they're not ready to come out. And it raises a very valid point where, like, some user on Twitter commented, like, so are Xbox players just going to be beta testing for the full release on PlayStation later? Because the current plan is to release a game on Xbox and then a few months, not years, few months later, release it on other platforms.
That does seem like what it would be. You also
And
said
it's a-
something
it's a
very
fair
funny,
point.
which was like PlayStation 5 Pro, the best place to play Xbox first party titles.
Right, yeah. Like,
Which is not true because PC exists, but
like, the people at Microsoft don't care about this, right? Because they care about money, which they'll get, and lots of it with this strategy. But
they'll double the sales overnight for these games.
Yeah.
But
like the user base, I think rightfully so, is a little bit miffed at all this.
yeah, I would be if I was an Xbox Series X owner. I wouldn't be. The feelings are hard to say because you're getting the same games you thought you were getting, but had you known this, you would have probably bought a PlayStation because you could have had the same games you're going to be getting and The Last of Us and Spider-Man and stuff. Like you've missed out on those titles for no reason now.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, it's, and even as someone who has an Xbox, like I have an Xbox,
Yeah.
basically as a Halo machine,
So I guess
only
that's
a Halo machine, and like, I still intend to use that thing for Halo. Like, I don't think I would ever play Halo on PlayStation simply because it's just not how my brain works. But
Can't believe you're not playing those games on PC.
I'll tell you what, Elder Scrolls 6, like when Microsoft purchased Bethesda, the biggest concern
Yeah.
was Elder Scrolls 6 exclusivity, and now that's just not a thing anymore.
It's just not a worry, yeah. Although you'll wait a few months. You'll be fine with that.
Yeah, I'll be fine
Okay.
with that.
I
mean,
I don't know.
I don't
you
know.
paid like $100 to play Diablo 4 2 days early or whatever.
I did, yeah. And like, honestly, I was peer pressured into that. Like, it was not a thing I was
And
planning
you
on
don't
doing.
think you'd be peer pressured into Elder Scrolls 6?
Elder Scrolls 6 isn't a multiplayer game.
Yeah, but it is going to be a cultural phenomenon.
I don't know, man. Current Bethesda, can
That's
they
true.
can they
Like,
do it? Can they do
are
it?
washed, but
They're a little bit washed. Yeah.
so I guess that brings me to the question: if you have your PC and you could install the Xbox software on your PC, would you buy the weird third-party OEM Xbox if that happened? Would you buy
No.
one?
If
Me neither.
if Microsoft themselves made an Xbox, I would buy it. Because
What if they do both?
I truly do love consoles. I think consoles are just neat.
What if it's both? What if there's like a Founders Edition Xbox that is Microsoft hardware, but they open the gate to other people to also do it?
I mean, I would buy the Microsoft version. But
Okay.
barring there being no Microsoft hardware, I would absolutely install that Xbox,
App,
software app or whatever on my PC and just call it a day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who don't feel the same way. A lot of people are console only. Like,
No, I mean, my buddy,
and
I was
that's
talking
totally
about
fine.
earlier, he was like worried, like, oh my god, are they going to stop making Xbox controllers? And that I
No,
just
that's
can't see
huge.
that happening. Like that,
Yeah.
they're never going to stop making. That's
Because
like the most
they
popular
make
PC
Xbox
controller.
controllers for PC. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Those
Yeah,
are
it's
not
going
going
nowhere.
anywhere. Those are they. I assume those are profitable. Like,
yeah, and again, like this is all like mostly speculation at this point. We'll have a clearer picture next week, but I really don't think it's going to be as bad as people are thinking it's going to be. But maybe I'm wrong. We'll see.
yeah, I think it was fun to do this episode and like just explore the hypotheticals. I have no idea what
Yeah,
and
if nothing else, man, like we always rag on Xbox's games, but they certainly make the most interesting moves from an industry perspective.
And
Like,
honestly, I don't like the future where Sony holds everything, because it's just going to be Sony's just going to put out the PlayStation 6 and it's going to be like garbage,
we can't know what they're gonna do, but
Yeah.
their incentive to excel would be gone.
It's gone.
yeah,
There's
competition
they barely
is
have one
good
right
in
now.
any industry. So I certainly hope, if the worst case scenario passes, Valve becomes Sony's rival, because that'll just make both of them better.
Yeah, they barely have any competition right now, and it's showing with like how willing they are to push boundaries with their games. But I mean, in the future with Xbox going away, will we even get good games?
Ah,
I think
I
we
don't-
will. I think
yeah.
we'll get good games, but I do agree that like a little bit of that fire that is lit under them will go out, and that's not a good thing for consumers.
Yeah.
no.
This never is.
All right. Do we have any final thoughts on this Xbox debacle ahead of next week's announcement?
Open the door for the Valve console.
Valve.
So you're saying
let's go.
you're saying go ahead and die already.
Put
so
them out of
Valve can take your
business.
place.
Put them in
Yeah.
the grave.
No, I guess my final word on this is that like things are going to change drastically, but I think at the very least you're not going to have to worry about your time and money being wasted. I think that much will be true, but we shall see. All right, Connor, I think I know what you're playing.
Oh, you knew I'd been playing Sea of Thieves again.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I jumped back into Sea of Thieves a bit. I've been having fun with it. I don't know. I've had a less toxic experience. They seem to have fixed like the some of the more pain points of the PvP in that game. The like the matchmaking. I've been winning a lot more than I've been losing. So actually maybe I just got good, but I've been getting matches quickly. I've been having fun with it. I'm probably going to finish that grind and then maybe never play that game again. I'm really
Oh
close
no,
to the...
you'll play it again. You'll play it with me when it comes out on PlayStation.
Oh, true. I will do that. I will actually do that in a heartbeat. Because I do like that game, but I can't get anybody to play with me right now. And the PvP is like kind of the most boring thing to do, but it's the only thing I can consistently like get going single player. So
I mean, isn't there like a lot of other stuff to do
Oh,
in that
there's
game? Isn't
so
it
much
basically
to do in
just
that game.
Destiny but pirates?
I wouldn't go that far. I would actually say like if you're looking at designing a metaverse, I would say Sea of Thieves is like a really good thing to look at because it's like a pretty big map with a lot of players in it, but none of them have the same objectives. So it's just a lot of people going around this world doing different stuff, and interesting things happen when they cross paths. And I think that's great. It's just really neat.
Yeah.
Sometimes they work together, sometimes they kill each other, and you just really never know what you're going to get when you run into somebody else in that game. Sometimes they just hide out on your ship for a while without letting you know that they're there, and then suddenly steal all your stuff.
That's fun.
Just a lot of options.
Yeah. Sea of Thieves really turned around from when it was first launched.
Yeah,
But I
in a
can't
pretty
help
big
but
way.
can't help but hope Rare someday goes back to their
I'd love for them to make another
3D
game,
platformer roots, but I think that day is past, sadly.
The season 11 of Sea of Thieves came out pretty recently, and it's interesting because you can get to the content you want to play a lot faster. They basically made it so that you can fast travel to the start of whatever mission you want to do. And I think that's just a benefit because you still have to like sail around for the mission and to like actually sell stuff. So I don't think it really takes anything away. It's just a really nice quality of life feature to get you into the action faster.
Yeah. Well, good for them.
Yeah, it's been fun. But Amit, I think I know what you've been playing.
You kind of really just like smacked me in the face with that response. But
yeah. No, Persona 3 is really good.
Yeah, Persona 3 Reload. So I've never played Persona 3, so this is by all intents and purposes a new Persona game for me. And let me just say, nothing quite hits like a Persona game. Nothing. Like, they have their own wholly unique vibe that I think is almost impossible for any other game to capture.
The crazy thing about a Persona game is I think it's just a visual novel that I'm not embarrassed to play.
Yeah, a huge part of it is that. Yeah. Right? Like, most of the gameplay is you just reading dialogue with, like, really well voice-acted...
If the UI was not as perfect as it is,
it really
I think
is
it would be so boring.
I agree with you. Like, the presentation is just on another level. Like, I don't think any game does presentation as well as Persona.
Yeah.
Like, they're masters.
So Persona 3 is in a weird spot. I would never in a million years recommend it over Persona 5.
Yeah, so I at this point, I agree with you. But I'm still having a blast with it. How much time have you put into it?
I just beat the first boss.
Do you know your hour count? Because it shows you every time you save.
Yeah, but I don't. I haven't played it in a couple days, actually. I've been busy.
So, I've put 21 hours into this game.
I'm a little less than that. Not a ton less, I don't think.
Yeah, so, which is just crazy to me, right? Like, as a 30-year-old adult, like, when a Persona game comes out, I can just... It's like I'm like an IV straight to my dopamine receptors. Like, I am just sitting in front of my TV playing that game for hours and hours and hours nonstop.
They're hard to put down.
They're really hard to put down.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
Very strange about the different experience. So I played Persona 5 on console, and this is another thing I'm going to give console huge credit for. I miss having a sleep mode so bad playing Persona 3. Like I've seen the opening. Like I only saw the title screen of Persona 5 like twice in my 80 hours or whatever that I played it, whereas I'm seeing it every time this time, and it just being able to put it to sleep and put it down would be really nice.
Oh yeah, that's how I'm playing it, and it's
I'm having
fantastic.
to actually save and quit every time, and it's really frustrating because you can't always save, and that's really annoying. Because I was playing it pretty late one night, and I got to the point that I was like, actually, like I need to go to bed, and I couldn't because I couldn't save.
Because you just lose hours.
That was when I was fighting the boss fight, and I was just like, oh my god, I'm too tired to fight this boss right now, but I have to.
Yeah, Persona still maintains that kind of old school like save spot mentality for a lot.
And I can't play it on my Steam Deck because I'm playing it on Gamepass. So
there's just like, let me know if this is just me, but there's an insane level of nostalgia associated with Persona to me, and I don't know why. Right, like because I did play my first Persona game was Persona 4 Golden, which I played on Vita in college, and that was a defining game for me, right? Like, it's one of the games that defined my taste, basically.
Well, I think it's also just reminiscent of college for us.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Like, these games, like, there's nostalgia for Persona 4 there, but there's also nostalgia for, like, just your childhood and going to school, because they capture that element so well of just being a kid.
Yeah, the freedom. But they're in high school, but they have freedom we didn't have in high school, because, like, they're in Japan, so they can get around the whole city without a car, and
it really, dude, like playing the Persona games really makes me feel like I wish I grew up as a kid in Japan. Like, it really makes me feel that way.
You don't have to be in Japan for that. This is something I've been thinking about recently. Since I moved to Pittsburgh, I run into roving bands of teenagers all the time, and it's because they can just get wherever they need to go.
Yeah, maybe it's just like growing up in a city. Yeah, but like that's not it either, because Persona 4 Golden takes place in the suburbs slash
Yeah,
countryside.
Japan
and it
just has
still
better
gave me
suburbs
those
than
vibes.
us.
Yeah.
But no, it really is just such a
Yep.
great feeling to like.
They
and
just
like,
it really just captures that nostalgia for childhood so well.
and they do such a good job because it's not even like you have something to do every day. Like you don't have people on your phone asking you to hang out every single day. There are days where you have to like just decide something to do on your own, like go work at a part-time job or play video games
Exactly.
and raise your
Like,
stats.
I'm
Yeah, they
just,
just nailed it.
I'm working nights at a coffee shop part-time so
Yeah.
I can blow that money on the arcade the next night and rinse and repeat.
Exact
Like,
same thing.
it's just like, he's just like me for real. Like,
It's so real.
it's I don't know. Like, there's something so magical about Persona, but like, I think maybe we should stop talking about Persona in general and Persona 3 Reload specifically.
So
Like,
I have one beef with this game. Ridiculous that they charge $70 for it. I got it on Gamepass, but like it's a remake of a game from like the PS2 and I don't know, and it's worse than Persona 5. Not meaningfully, but measurably in every single area, it is worse than Persona 5 to me. And I don't think they should be charging more for it than they do Persona 5.
do you realize who you're talking about though? This is Atlas. They will make one
they also they
everything.
distributed their soundtrack as an EXE, so you can't
they don't
like,
want you
put it on an iPod
yeah, exactly,
or something.
yeah.
Yeah, like come
Which-
on, guys,
This soundtrack though,
it's good.
just full of bangers. Like the nighttime exploration theme, straight up one of the best songs just ever in a video game. Like, it's so good.
It's all extremely good.
And
it's
again,
genres
it just
that I
adds
don't
to the
normally like.
presentation, right?
Yeah.
Like, the songs fit so well with what you're doing. It's just perfect. And you'd think you'd get tired of them because there's not a lot of them, but I could listen to those songs from now until like the day I die probably and not get sick of them. Like, I love the soundtrack to this game.
Nah, and I also like, even after I'd like made fun of you a little bit for the PlayStation Portal, like however many weeks ago, I have been streaming this game to my Steam Deck and like playing it in bed.
Dude, Persona is a handheld game to me.
It's so cozy.
To me, it has to be a handheld game. Like, because maybe that's because I played Persona 4 that way.
It
But
doesn't have to be for me, but it is a very cozy way to play it.
It doesn't
And
have to be, but like, yes, it adds to the experience.
It also it's such a cozy game, like you know, because it is, at least the way that I play it, it is more visual novel than RPG. Like, I spend far more time out in the world than I do.
I agree.
In Tartarus,
Yeah,
the dungeon.
I do too.
Like,
But like,
yeah,
again, like, and Persona 3 is the first iteration of modern Persona. So like,
Yeah.
the whole like social aspect feeding into the dungeon crawling, feeding into the social aspect, that all started with Persona 3. And like you said in our chat, Connor, it is crazy how much they got right on their first attempt.
it is.
Like, it's a system that feeds into itself and works so well.
That
And
said,
it only got refined in 4 and 5.
yeah, but it is a little rusty compared to 5.
It is,
and, like,
I do agree with you.
$70, man.
It's not as polished as those games, but again, I can forgive all the flaws just because they nail the vibes so hard.
I agree
Like, they
with that.
really just nail them.
No, I would say if you're curious about Persona and want to check it out, I would say 5. If you love Persona, you should play 3 Reload. Like,
I agree with that.
yeah, if you know that you're into
5
this,
is still I mean, I'll say it. 5's probably the best game in the series, right? 4 is
it's
my
the goat,
favorite.
yeah, 5
because
like,
of my nostalgia, but like 5 is probably, objectively speaking, the best game in the series, and probably one of, if not the best JRPGs like of all time.
it's either my first or second favorite JRPG. It's between that and Dragon Quest 12 or Dragon Quest 11.
Yeah.
And the vibes are extremely different on those. I would say like the only thing Persona 3 is meaningfully missing for me, the thing I really, really miss is in Persona 5, the dungeons you go into are called palaces, and they are reflections of something that is happening in the real world and a person in the real world. And I miss that a lot in 3. I don't know if there is any of that later.
No, I think it's just Tartarus. And from what I've been reading, right, like, because I'm curious how this is different from the original. Apparently, they improved Tartarus drastically. So it was even worse in the original Persona 3.
I mean, Tartarus isn't that bad. It's boring.
No, Tartarus
It's
is fine.
samey.
You know, it's like, let's just put it this way. If the music wasn't so good, I would get bored of Tartarus. But the music is so good, it basically carries Tartarus on its back.
And the combat feels extremely good. The combat, I mean, I don't know how it was on the PS2, but the combat in this feels
It's
identical
incredible,
to
yeah.
Persona 5 to me. Like,
No, I think they definitely Persona 5'd it quite a bit.
And that was the right call, because it just feels...
It
I've
feels
never
good.
played-
It looks fantastic. The characters all look great. Like
I've
the
never played a
graphics on the
JRPG with better combat either.
character
Like,
designs. Yeah, the combat's so smooth. And the UI, my god.
Oh my god.
Dude,
Well, something about it.
Dude, the menu, just like the general menu that comes up when like it turns the character like
Oh, yeah.
underwater, it's just like so cool and creative.
It is also the fact that it is button presses instead of selecting something in a menu with a cursor is such a quality of or not even a quality of life. It just feels better to press it. Like if there's 4 options, you're pressing one of the 4 face buttons. That is always going to feel better than selecting something in a menu was. And
Absolutely.
they nail it. Yeah, I don't know. Little things, I guess, but
yeah,
looking at you,
Persona,
Pokemon.
like, yeah, but like
Do
Persona
something.
is always about like to me the heart of the Persona games. Like the story matters a lot, but like the main thing is the vibes and the social links.
yes.
And
The
I will
small
say, like,
stories, yeah,
the small stories, like a story about like your friend on the track team who has to reconcile with the fact that he has a knee injury and can't keep going, or like the story of a young girl you befriend who's dealing with her parents' divorce, or like the story of an old couple who are mourning the death of their son. You like
or your
all
friend
these,
at school who wants to have sex with his teacher really
or
bad.
that. You know, some stories are stronger than other stories. Is what I was getting at.
Yeah, no,
But-
I even the one that is very silly that I just said and kind of messed up, it's still told like in a way that I'm wholly invested in having a good time. Like,
It is, and like I'm sorry, but like kids that age would absolutely talk.
no, the problem is that it goes pretty well for him.
Yeah, I don't know how far you are into that social link, but like I'm of the impression he's just like an idiot. I don't know if it's actually going well for him. If it is, that's kind of problematic.
Yeah, it's hard to
but
tell. Yeah.
I think he's just stupid. But like, yeah, I think the social links are well done. My biggest complaint so far, and I don't know if this changes because Persona are like massive 100-hour games. No social links with your party members so far.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Like that is wild if they're not in, because like that's a huge way to like flesh out the main characters in Persona games, and that's how it was in 4 and 5. I don't know if they were absent in 3 or whatever,
Yeah.
but yeah, I like.
So the
I
way
love
that you summon your persona is so
Oh yeah,
cool.
it's so
Just-
edgy.
You
Yeah,
just shoot yourself in the head and there's a persona now.
yeah. I do like. This is the best way to summon a persona out of 3, 4, and 5. Because in
Yeah.
4, you basically just like draw a card. In 5, you like put on your mask or whatever.
You take off your mask.
You take off your mask, which is cool. But
Yeah.
shooting yourself in the head to summon
No,
a
and the
persona,
fact that,
like, come on.
one of the characters is afraid to do it. And like, yeah, you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course you are.
Technically, the evokers aren't guns, so they don't
I
have
know, but
ammunition, but like
it's
still.
the symbolism. Yeah.
But yeah, like, man, like, this game takes place in 2009, I think? Yeah, it takes place in 2009, and
that
that
right?
seems just about right.
So was it a PS3 game?
No, I mean, like, the game itself takes place in 2009.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna say that seems like the right amount of edge for that time.
Yeah, and you can tell by the phones and stuff.
Yeah, they've all got flip phones, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I love it when games, like,
No, it feels like a
dedicate
little time
themselves to
capsule.
to a time period like that.
Although they weren't doing that at the time. Like, they weren't doing it on purpose. It was just...
Oh yeah, it was
What
just
existed.
how things were.
Yeah.
But with these, I guess that's one positive things, like with all these remakes, is kids down the line will play these games and be like, hey, that's how things used to be in the mid 2000s or whatever.
Yeah. Good
But
game.
yeah, Persona 3 Reload, like, I mean, I'm gonna play it after we finish recording this. Like, I'm binging it. Like, I binged Persona 4 Golden, I binged Persona 5, and I'm binging this game. So like, there's no stopping me once I get going with Persona. So
I'm not binging it. This is going to be a long play for me.
that's great.
I think.
Honestly,
Yeah.
that's the best way to experience Persona, I think. But like, I just can't help
It
myself.
just hasn't gripped me the way 5 has. Like, I really enjoy it when I play it, but it's
So
not like I have to pick it back up.
I have heard that this game, like, and I'm totally fine with the story right now. It's just kind of chill, low stakes, I think. I've heard almost unanimously Persona 3 has by far the best story in the entire series.
Really?
So
See,
I think the story really picks up later on.
I do want to say I loved the set piece of that first boss fight. You're like on a train.
On the train, yeah.
Yeah, and like there's a timer that is constantly getting shorter. That was
cool.
It was really cool. And
But yeah, this is one of those games that has been hyped up to me where it's just like, this is the best Persona story, like easily. And I'm just like, okay.
That's hard to believe
That's hard to believe, but like I see that opinion enough to where it's like, this is the common opinion. So I
just wonder
very
if it's
excited. No. They say like later in the game, the story really starts. So
Well,
I wonder what
then.
they mean by that. Yeah.
Because I'm already.
Because I don't think I'm there yet. What's that?
I'm in love with the characters, so
I think the kids are great. I think Junpei, Yukari,
yeah,
very good characters, and then
Junpei's...
Akihiko and red-haired girl Mitsuru, right?
That sounds right. Yeah,
yeah, like they're all solid characters. I think. Yeah. Are they better than the Persona 4 crew and Persona 5 crew?
Not yet.
It's hard to tell. Yeah, it's still early.
Yeah,
20 hours is still early in Persona.
Yeah, I miss the cat. I miss the cat telling me to go to bed. That was funny.
Yeah, that's one thing I noticed. Persona 4 and 5 had like mascot characters. Like 5 had Morgana and 4 had Teddy.
Yeah.
But like it doesn't appear to be one in this one.
It also like doesn't tell you, it doesn't hold you captive as often as 5 did.
I do like that about it, right? Like very early on in Persona 3 Reload, they're like, all right, you're free to go outside during the day, during the night, do whatever you want. So,
yeah, there aren't as many locations to go to, but you have full freedom in them.
Yeah, there aren't as many locations, but my God, the vibes at those locations are just
they're good. Yeah,
so good. Love that game, man. Like, yeah, Persona's magical, man. Like, and I do think they're going to eventually remake Persona 4 now. Like, even though they have a Persona 4 Golden, like
there are rumors that they're doing a remake of 2 and 4 right now.
2 and 4, and that's crazy because like 2 is like drastically different from the Persona, like from modern Persona.
It's more of a Shin Megami Tensei game.
I'm curious how that's even gonna translate. But like Persona 4, man, like once that gets remade,
I'll
like,
play that. Yeah,
that. Oh my gosh, like experience that game modernized. Like that is my. It's like a top 5 game for me, man. Like it's just.
We're coming up on time
I can't wait.
for Persona 6, aren't we? Like,
dude, like. It's about time, right? Like it's been like what 8-9 years, something like that.
It's been a while. That was a PS4 game, and
Persona
a PS3
6.
game.
Yeah, Persona 6, man. Like that's gonna be. I can't even imagine, dude. Like it's gonna be so game changing. Like it's gonna be. It's gonna come out and just instantly be the best JRPG ever made, probably.
Yeah.
Mike, you ever play Persona?
What? What about? I've been zoned out. No, I've never played Persona. That's why I'm zoned out. I don't want to talk about it because it's Warframe again, but I will. No, I've been sucked back into a prior addiction.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
I mean,
at least it's not League of Legends,
at least it's
honestly.
not MapleStory, right?
Or Sea of Thieves.
At least it's not League.
Everyone's got that one game they always go back to.
Yeah.
I mean, since the game is finally adding late game content, it's worthwhile. And I've been helping someone else grind through the early game.
That's always fun.
So at least it's giving me something
I
to
actually
do.
really enjoy doing that. I remember doing that with a bunch of my friends in Destiny, and it like never felt like a chore to me. It was always fun seeing their...
Yeah,
helping people out in MapleStory.
And Warframe actually rewards you for early game grinding because you can, use the resources you get from early game missions anyway. So you're not losing anything. You're still getting resources that you could actively use for your late game grinds. So it's not like it's a waste of my time. Some games, early game grinding is just a waste of my time because I'm getting nothing from it. But I've ignored enough of like some of the early game grinds that it's entertaining to go back and play through them. It's a nice break from everything taking 4 minutes to kill at the end, at late stage games.
Bullet sponges.
It's not that bad, honestly. Yeah. They're not that bullet spongy if you build right, but if you don't, they are bullet spongy.
I know Warframe is like a good game, so I suspect it's not all bullet sponges.
Yeah, it's only bullet sponges super, super late, and by that point, like, you're going to have enough Warframe abilities to make them not bullet sponges anymore.
Is that game still available on Switch? Do you know? I know it was.
Yeah, it's full cross-platform now.
That's crazy.
Cross-save, cross-progression, cross-platform.
Good for them.
They just merged all the saves together, so that's why I got back into it, because I could merge. I merged like what little progress I had in PlayStation into my PC file.
Nice.
So I gained like a bunch of that inventory and crafted a bunch of stuff that I didn't even realize I had lying around.
Nice.
So,
yeah, you always love to hear it when like a game, like a live service game like Warframe, is actually good and succeeds.
It's one
that
I don't
doesn't
get
happen
any
very
complaints
often.
about Warframe. Like,
I do, but mostly it's from like
you're more plugged into it. Notably,
most of the complaints were from people who are content creators for it and were fiending over it every day, day in, day out,
yeah.
making nothing but Warframe content.
Yeah.
And I think it comes from like, oh, another rep grind. Yeah, it seems bad because that's all you do. You just play the game for content.
Yeah.
Like I'd be miserable too if I played the same game day in, day out.
Yeah.
You know? So it makes sense that they all quit the game now.
Anyone got any other games?
Not really. I played a little Fortnite, and I just wanted to plug AMD Fluid Motion Frames, or whatever they're called. The DLSS 3 competitor that works in any DirectX 10 or 11 game. Or 11 or 12? I don't remember. It's out, and I was using it in Fortnite the other day, and as far as I can tell, it's just free frames. I couldn't tell no perceptible latency, because that game's already running pretty well on my rig, and
No loss of like image quality.
not that I could tell. I felt it a little. It was weird because I wasn't dissatisfied with my frame rate to begin with, but if the picture is moving really quickly, like if you're like whipping your camera around, it disables because it knows it's going to do a bad job. And despite it being the frame rate I was perfectly happy with like a week ago, I feel it now when the better frame rate goes away.
Wow.
So other than that, no, it is really good. Watch the Digital Foundry video if you really care, but to my eye, it's great.
Nice. Another game that just keeps on giving.
Well, this is every game now. Every DirectX game,
Oh, so it's just like a flip you switch?
Yeah, it's in the driver. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's insane,
It's basically motion smoothing from what I've read.
Because for NVIDIA, it is a per game basis. They have to like include frame.
Well, there's
right?
There's a superior version that is per game. This is like the FSR1 version of FSR3, like where it can work on any game, but it does a worse job. But it does a pretty good job. But then there's the better like DLSS 3-esque version that is actually something you have to put in per game, and that's going to be like way better.
I see.
Allegedly. I have not tried it. There are some mods for it, but it's not supported in any games I play officially yet, and I don't want to mess with the mods.
Alrighty, I think that's going to do it for us this week. Next week we'll learn what's finally happening at Xbox, hopefully. Hopefully the news drops before we record, because that would be kind of annoying.
Yeah. We might have to delay our recording if it doesn't.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how things shake out, but for now, thank you all for listening. You can follow us at @PodcastGameTalk on Twitter. Please like, rate, and review us on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, or any other podcast services you use. Click the link in the description to join our Discord and talk to us there. Thank you, Connor and Mike.
Yeah, see you guys next week.
See you next week. Bye.